Good morning, children. Welcome back to the class. So, in the last class, we just finished the lesson with the discussion of what are debit cards and what are credit cards. Debit cards, it allows the card holder to transfer money or to withdraw money from his account or make payments for the purchases that he has made, preferred, okay, if he has got money in his account, bank account. Whereas credit card, it is a payment made by the card holder. Even if there is no money in his bank account, he will be able to make the payments for the purchases that he has made through using the credit card. So it allows him a credit limit depending upon the card holder's credit holdings or card holder's continuous good transaction or the goodwill that he has maintained with the bankers. With this last class we stopped. Now let us learn the recent issues which are associated with the banking networks. Before going to that topic, we need to understand what is NPA, a very commonly used word in almost daily in the newspapers. We could see the abbreviations, the acronym NPA. NPA means non-performing assets. Suppose if a borrower has, if a person has borrowed a huge amount of money from the bankers, and if he has failed to pay the interest and the principal amount for a period of more than 90 days, then that particular asset which has been created by the bank is called as non-performing asset. Just imagine if more volume of this non-performing asset is increasing, it will become a problematic situation for the financial institutions, because they'll be when they are unable to collect the interest and the principal payments from the borrowers, okay, it is a loss for the financial institution, because interest payments which are made by the borrowers are the only source of income for the bankers to meet out their various expenditures. We know what are the different types of expenditures which are associated with an institution. They need to pay for the overhead expenses, the rent is there, and payment of salary for their staffs, and advertisement expenses, and all the printing, stationery, whatever you see in the trading and profit and loss account will be applicable for a financial institution also, because basically banks are working with a profit motive only, where their main source of income is the interest payments which is being made by the borrowers. When this becomes an NPA, it leads to a problematic situation for the financial institutions. Now, what will happen when such a situation, when this NPA value is increasing? What the government of India will do is, when the banks show a large volume of NPA, that is non-performing asset, in such a situation, to create credit by the bankers, the government of India will fund from its money which the government of India has collected as a tax amount from the taxpayers. So what will happen? The money which has been collected, the revenue of the government of India, which has been collected by way of tax payments, okay, made by the tax assessees, will automatically go to the public itself in the form of loans, rather through the commercial banks. So who is ultimately affected? The taxpayer is only ultimately affected because of the non-performing assets. That is the reason why when very big industrialists and like Vijay Malaya, okay, all the people who have cheated the banks, okay, where their loan amount has become a big portion of NPA, they run away out of the country. And who is ultimately affected? It is the general public or the taxpayers are affected, because their money is only again taken to create credit for the general public who borrow loans. Now, when you look into the statistical reports, the government of India has infused capital to the banks by using the poor taxpayers' money. Already a sum of 2 crore rupee has been injected into the society through the commercial banks by way of creation of capital. And during 2018 and 19, the government has again infused a capital of 68,000 crores into the banking system. So what is happening? As the NPA value is increasing, the amount of money which is being collected by the government of India through taxation, it is being utilized by the commercial bank, okay, for creation of credit. So who is the taxpayer? not the person who has run away or not the person who has created the NPA, but the ultimate poor people who pay the taxes on time. Okay, so it is ultimate, the NPA value, which if it is increasing, it is affecting the common people only. Now let us understand the merger of banks in India rather. The cabinet, the Union cabinet decided to merge 5 associates of the State Bank Group with State Bank of India in the year 2017. We know State Bank of India is the biggest bank with the maximum number of branches all around India, and it has got the maximum number of customers also. Now, under the State Bank of India, there are many other state bank groups which are in operation, like State Bank of Travancore, State Bank of Bikaner, State Bank of Jaipur, State Bank of Patiala, State Bank of Mysore, State Bank of Hyderabad. All these state bank groups are merged together and everything comes under State Bank of India. Like this, 5 of the associates of the state bank groups has been merged. Okay, and now when you see, the State Bank of India is supposed to be among the top 50 banks in the world after this merger. And which are the 5 associate banks which were merged? It was the State Bank of Bikaner and Jaipur, the State Bank of Hyderabad, the State Bank of Mysore, the State Bank of Patiala, State Bank of Travancore. These 5 banks have been merged in the year 2017. As a result of that, State Bank of India has become the top bank, that is one among the top 50 banks in the world as such. And the other 2 associate banks, that is namely the State Bank of Indore and State Bank of Saurashtra, it has been already merged with the State Bank of India already even before 2017. After the merger, the total customer base of SBI, it has increased to how much? 37 crores with a banking network of how many branches? 24,000 branches are there, and apart from that 60,000 ATMs are there which are operating all around the world. This is the information about a merger, that is the Union Cabinet has decided for the merger of 5 associate banks of state bank groups, okay, in the year 2017 by passing a bill. After that, the 5 associate banks, that is the Bank of Bikaner and Jaipur, Bank of Hyderabad, Bank of Mysore, Bank of Patiala and Bank of Travancore, these 5 associate banks were merged. And after this merger, the State Bank of India has taken up one of the positions in the world banks, that is it comes under the top 50 banks when we compare the world banks as such. Already State Bank of Indore and State Bank of Saurashtra has been merged before 2017 itself. After this merger, now State Bank has got a customer base of how much? 37 crore customers with 24,000 branches and almost 60,000 ATMs across the country. Okay, this is with respect to the merger of banks. Now let us understand what is money market and capital market. Quite an important question. You will be learning this topic even in commerce also. 12th standard commerce also you will be learning what is money market. See, money market, it is a mechanism or a method through which short-term funds are raised, loans are borrowed and it is being lent. When short-term funds are being raised, okay, or when it is borrowed by the people, such short-term loans are called as money market. And who are the people who deal with money market? The small financial organizations, okay, the acceptance houses, the non-banking financial institutions, and even the central banks are the institutions who cater to the requirements of the short-term funds. When the loans are being given for a short duration of period, then you call it as loans borrowed under money market. And the commercial banks involved in money market, acceptance houses, non-banking financial institutions are responsible for money market, and the central banks also. Central banks are the institutions which cater to the requirements of the short-term funds in the money market. Now let us understand what is capital market. See, capital market, it is as such a part of the financial system of a country. See, when a big joint stock company or when the government has to undertake a very huge project, then how will it raise the funds? It has to raise finance only by floating equity shares. So, capital market deals with shares, bonds and other long-term investment. So, any huge massive project, if it is undertaken by the government or undertaken by huge MNC firms or MNC corporations, when it is raised, when it is when the equity shares are being floated in the market with an intention of raising long term investment, that you call it as capital market. The market where instruments like bonds, equities and mortgages are traded, you call it as capital market. Very simple difference only. Money market, is a mechanism through which short term funds are raised or borrowed or loaned, whereas under capital market it deals with long term investments. And who are the people who deal with short term finance, that is in money market? Commercial banks, acceptance houses, non banking financial institutions cater to the requirements of short term funds. But whereas when we talk of capital market is concerned with what? Raising capital by dealing with shares, bonds and other long term investments. Okay, it can be mortgage loans where the duration of the loan will be overspread for a longer period of time. Next, another important concept we will be learning now. What is demonetization? Demonetization, many a times we have come across this word demonetization in the recent years. Probably when you were in if I am right, when you were in 9th standard, if I am right, this demonetization would have happened during the time of Modi's rule only. Okay, let us understand what is demonetization. Demonetization means it is an act where it strips away the currency, the currency unit of its status as a legal tender. What is a legal tender? A promissory note is a legal tender. A currency note is a legal tender. See, suppose for example, we have a 500 rupee currency note. In that 500 rupee currency note, it will be very clearly stated that it is a legal tender. It means the government has legally authorized that particular paper currency as a legal tender, which could be utilized equivalent to the value of 500 rupees. Okay, so this has been authorized as a legal tender. Now, when I say demonetization, it is the act of removing, okay, that particular currency, whatever is a unit of the currency, from its status as a legal tender. Now, in the year 2016, two currencies were demonetized. 1000 rupee note was demonetized and 500 rupee note was banned rather, which means that no longer this 1000 rupee note and 500 rupee note will serve as a legal tender. No longer you can accept this as 500 rupee note or 1000 rupee note. That is, the value of that particular currency is totally stripped away, okay, from the currency unit. Stripped away means taken away. Okay, the current form or forms of money that is pulled from circulation often. Now, normally when do we do the demonetization? Whenever new currency notes have to be introduced into the money supply, they will do the demonetization task. Okay, now then this 1000 rupee note and 500 rupee note were demonetized. That is, that particular currency was stripped away from the money supply. The status of it as a legal tender was removed. Now, when was it removed? To reduce the money supply in the country rather. And that is the main reason why this demonetization was being done. And it was done when on 8th November 2016, when Prime Minister Mr. Modi, he announced that demonetization of all the 500 and 1000 rupee notes which had the Mahatma Gandhi series. Okay. And by doing this demonetization, almost 99% of the currency which was issued by the RBI, it was brought back to the RBI itself. Okay, the currencies whichever was in circulation, we were immediately asked to go and surrender the currency notes to the bankers. So almost everyone, we rushed to the bankers, and whatever the 500 rupee note and 1000 rupee note, we just submitted into our bank account, and we received and our account was added with that much amount of currency that we deposited. All of a sudden, though the announcement was made, all of a sudden they have given time limit for us to deposit the money into the bankers. So what will happen? Whatever the money that was being printed and issued and circulated in the economy, that currency is taken away by the RBI with the process of demonetization. Now, let us understand what is the main objective of doing this demonetization. Basically, there are four main objectives of doing this demonetization. One thing is, when there is excessive money supply in the economy. What will happen when there is excessive money supply in the economy? We learnt this under the topic of liquidity preference theory. when there is more money supply, Irvin Fisher's quantity theory of money we learned. When money supply increases, automatically price increases. When money supply doubles, price also doubles. Did we learn that in Irvin Fisher's quantity theory of money? So when there is huge amount of money supply prevailing in the economy, automatically what will happen? People will have enough of money in their hands. When people have enough of money in their hands, it means that they have a better purchasing power. They will be ready to pay a high price for the commodity that they buy. Automatically what will happen? The price of the commodity will increase. So this is one of the reason for inflation also. The excessive money leads to inflation only. So to control or to bring the price under control or to regulate inflation, the excessive money supply is taken away from the economy. So demonetization is being practiced for that reason. Next is for removing the black money from the country. As soon as demonetization was announced, all the people who had excess of who had the money, we immediately went and deposited into the bankers. Once we deposit the money in the bank, it becomes accountable. So whatever money which is not accounted, which is not being deposited in the bank, are black money, that is unaccounted money. Who will not deposit the money in the bank? Only when a person who has got more amount of unaccounted money, he will not bring that money into the bank. Once it is brought into the bank, it becomes accountable. When it becomes accountable, he is liable to pay tax for the money that he is accounted into his account, into his books of account. So to avoid the tax payment, all these years people have been doing transactions on without any billing process, or not bringing the transaction into their books of accounts. Once they bring the transaction into their books of accounts, it becomes accountable. So when a sale proceed is being done without bringing into account, it means that they need not show that money coming into their business. As a result, they need not pay tax for the sale that has been taken place. But once the money is being accounted into the books of account, it becomes taxable. So whatever the demonetization main objective is to remove the black money from the country as such. Many a times we might have noticed, never we ask for a bill when we go and fill petrol in the petrol bunks. Have we ever asked for bill? Now only in the recent years we have got this awareness, and we ask for a bill from the petrol bunks. Otherwise what do? We just fill in petrol, we pay the money, whatever money we need to pay, and we just push off. Okay, but we do not even ask for a bill. So what happens? The sale has happened, money has also gone to his hand, but it has not been accounted because a bill has not been raised by the seller. Okay, so what happens? Again, it forms a part of the black money into the economy. So when you look deep into the aspect of black money, the total volume of money supply which is accountable, more than the money supply of the accountable money, the black money is also equally prevalent in the economy. There is a parallel economy which is much bigger than the accountable money supply in the economy. So that much of money is prevailing in the society as black money. So to remove the black money from the country, demonetization is being done. Next, to stop corruption activities. See, normally for corruption, lanjam. When a person is involved in corruption, he will never ask the person to pay him bribe in the form through his bank account. Normally they receive the corruption money or the bribe only as what? Cash and currency. Now when this cash when the currency notes becomes invalid, it loses its legal tender, then how will they receive the bribes then? Again, that becomes, to stop the corruption also, this demonetization is being announced. Next is stopping terror funds. Whenever for any terrorist activities are being done, those terrorists are being paid only as cash, only as a hot cash rather. They are not given any fund transfer of money. Okay, for any terrorism activity, huge amount of currency is only being transferred to the terrorist account. To stop the terror money going into the hands of terrors, to stop the terror funds, demonetization is being announced. Next, to curb the fake currency notes. For many years we have been using this 1000 rupee note and 500 rupee note. As technology increases, okay, the time when this 500 rupee note and 1000 rupee note was printed and published by the RBI, the development of technology was not to the level of the present technology what we are using. So what happens is many people started printing their own fake currencies, and that was also into circulation. Once these fake currency, the value of these fake currency increases, money supply increases, as a result price increases, and the purchasing power of the people falls down, and the consequences of the inflation we saw in the previous lesson. So to curb the fake notes, circulation of fake notes into the economy, demonetization is being done. Now these 4 points are the objectives of demonetization. Quite an easy answer, but an important answer. So with this, we are finishing this lesson. A small recap, a summary of what we learnt in this lesson is, it is well recognized that the financial sector, it plays a very crucial role in the development of a country. The role of banks are very, very important for the development of our country. Not only banks, financial institutions, the instruments and the market that constitutes the financial sector act as a conduit for the transfer of resources from one server to the other server. Like only because of the existence of banks and the financial service providers, they are able to connect the people who earn more and spend less. What do the people do who spend less? Majority portion of their money is being saved. Where do they save their money? They save the money in the bankers, with the bankers. That money is being utilized for the people who spend more and earn less. Okay, with a person who wants to earn money, but he doesn't have money, this money is being utilized is being created as credit by the bankers. The outcome of various reforms measures, so far whatever we saw, it is very impressive, and the bankers have also responded for whatever the operations or the performances which was being done, or the policies which were implemented by the government of India. But one thing needs to be taken into consideration is, in the 2010s, in 2010s, the volume of NPA has increased very sharply, which means, okay, the non-performing assets, the amount of money which has been borrowed by the people has not been repaid by them. The creditors have not repaid their money into the bankers. So this is considered to be one of the biggest default of the banking system. Now with this, we have come to the close of the lesson. In this lesson, we at the small glossary part, what are commercial banks we saw. There are some institutions which lend short-term loans to businesses, and in process they create money. What is credit creation? It is a multiplication of loans and advances. Who is responsible for credit creation? The commercial banks are responsible for credit creation. How do they create credit? Whereby when they accept the deposits from the public, that money is being used as loans for the general public. What are non-banking financial institutions? The financial institutions which doesn't have banking license, or where they are not supervised by the central bank, such institutions are called as non-banking financial institution. Next, what is central bank? Central bank, it is an institution that manages the state's currency and the money supply and the interest rate. Central banks also usually they take care or oversee the work of the commercial banking system. What is bank rate? Bank rate is a rate at which the commercial bank rediscounts the first class securities of the commercial banks. What is SLR? Statutory liquidity ratio. It is an amount which a bank has to maintain in the form of what? Gold and cash and approved securities. Cash reserve ratio. This is the banks are required to hold a certain portion of their deposit in the form of what? Cash. Where? With the RBI. This you call it as cash reserve ratio. Monetary policy. Any macroeconomic policy which is laid down by the central bank towards what? The management of the money supply, or the controlling of the money supply and the interest rate. Such a policy you call it as monetary policy. Who undertakes the monetary policy? The central bank does the monetary policy, not the central government. Capital market. It is a financial market where it deals with what? Long-term debts, equities, securities and mortgage loans. Okay. Next is demonetization. It is the act of what? Stripping away the currency unit of its status as what? As a legal tender. When does it occur? Only when there is a change in the national currency, demonetization act is occurring. Now that is all. With this, I shall just finish. We have finished this lesson. We have finished chapter 6 rather. In the next class, we shall move on to chapter 7. That is all, children. Have a good day. Thank you.